6 o'clock. Before we begin this meeting, I will ask for the courtesy of all in here, if you have a cell phone, to please turn it to silence. If y'all will look to my left and your right, you will notice a clock on the wall. For some of you who have never been here, that clock is a timer, and each side that speaks tonight will get a total of 10 minutes to speak. If you're signed up to speak and you may be number 7, 8, or 9, you may or may not get to speak. So those in front of you, just remember there may be others behind you. If there are any questions, we're glad to answer them. If not, it is now time to call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with an invocation from Mr. Charles Chandler.
Father God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this country and this state and this community that we live in. Father, we pray that you give this board wisdom as we examine and hear the cases tonight, and that we will do what's right and best for all people. Father, we pray for the upcoming elections, that you would guide the candidates and that you would place before us the people that you want in office. We ask you to bless those in our community who are sick and who have lost loved ones. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Remove your cap, salute, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would also like to remind you that if you signed up to speak, you'll be called forward. But if you've not signed up to speak, please try to be courteous and quiet for all of us in here. And I thank you. We will begin the meeting tonight with the approval or the amendment of the minutes from the last meeting. We don't have them. Okay.
It was done Tuesday night.
From Tuesday night, so we don't have them yet. All right, so we don't have them. If not, we'll begin with item number 1 on the agenda. Rango LLC, if I'm saying that correctly, has submitted a streetlight special tax district application for the Enclave subdivision. The development is located along Hightower Road, approximately 0.2 of a mile north of Golf Club Road. Cody Rogers will be serving as agent. Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This streetlight application is for a subdivision that's already approved by this board. Currently, one ownership being the developer, and after careful consideration by staff in making sure that the streetlight layout was equitable to all the lots and lighting standards, we recommend approval of the streetlight special tax district. So.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
Good afternoon. I'll answer any questions you may have about the streetlight tax district.
Are there any questions? If there are none, we will entertain a motion. If there's no more discussion.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve from Mr. Lane, a second from Mr. Chandler. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you. Item number 2. GATA LLC, GATA 4 LLC, has submitted a streetlight special tax district application for Latitude 32 subdivision. The development is located off Evelyn's Lane, and again, Cody Rogers will be acting as agent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same thing with this application. It's for a previously approved subdivision, which is currently under construction. Again, according to lighting standards, we recommend approval for this streetlight district, special tax district.
It probably won't be necessary for you to come up because I don't think there'll be more questions unless there's a question. All right, we'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve from Ms. Reiner. Second? Second from Mr. Bath. All those in favor? It is approved. Moving on to item number 3. GATA 4 LLC has submitted a streetlight special tax district application for Evelyn Oaks subdivision. The development is located off Evelyn's Lane. Again, Cody Rogers is serving as agent. Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application would involve 28 lights for the streetlight district. And again, according to lighting standards, we believe that it meets what we're looking for in a subdivision. So with that, and it being a single ownership as the developer, no public hearing is required, so we recommend approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or discussion? Is there a motion? From Mr. Lane, a second from Mr. Bath. All those in favor? Streetlight District is approved. All right, number 4. J-Quad Development LP has submitted an application for a sketch plan to divide 46 acres into 25 parcels. The property is located at 711 PW Clifton Road. Jim Anderson will be serving as agent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have an updated site plan that I'll show you on the screen. It's very close to what is proposed in the staff report, but the general location of this property is in Leafield. There is an area in the comprehensive plan that's around Leafield as a rural neighborhood, which coincides with the current zoning for the property as an R40, 40,000 square foot lots. So with it being currently zoned as R40, staff looked at the proposed sketch plan to make sure that it's in accordance with our ordinance. For the purpose of tonight, items 4 and 5 would go along with each other. This is a site plan that was proposed. The length of the street is longer than the 800-foot limitation on cul-de-sac streets due to the way the property is laid out and the lot sizes. There is, I guess, some concern there from the developer that it's just going to be a little bit difficult to get that design. So County Engineer Brad Deal and I worked with the developer to modify their site plan, which shows before the 800-foot mark, basically a half traffic circle, or in, I guess, engineering terms, an eyebrow, but it's a turnaround for all intents and purposes halfway down down the road, which they're proposing to place the well site on that parcel with the mail kiosk, and the design, and I believe Mr. Deals looked in or verified that the turn radius would be sufficient for a fire truck or a school bus to turn around in the event that, again, the limitation on cul-de-sac street lengths is public safety. If a fire truck were to turn down that road by mistake, this would help turn them around quicker than going all the way to the end of the street. So I say all that to bring to the point that we believe the site plan that's shown on the screen meets the proposed condition that we had in the staff report, and they were just able to work through it quicker than we anticipated. So we would recommend approval of the sketch plan as shown on the screen, and would be entered into the minutes for approval. And we also, if it was approved in this way, it satisfies the ordinance, and you wouldn't have to have the variance on number 5.
So number 5 would be eliminated
Correct.
with this, if we approve this sketch plan.
Correct.
Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, James. I am Jim Anderson, a local surveyor, and I'm representing, actually, the property ownership's been transferred from J-Quad to Riverbuff Properties, and there was some paperwork, J-Quad granting that permission. So I'm actually representing Riverbuff Properties. The track is about a half a mile east of Leafield, and it sits on the north side of P.W. Clifton Road. The property's already zoned R40. I think it's been zoned R40 for a pretty good while. So it wasn't a recent rezoning. We're proposing to divide the 46 acres into 25 lots. They would range in size from, most of them are .8 acres, which is the 40,000 square foot requirement, and two of the lots in the rear backing up to Mill Creek are 12 to 13 acres. But we had a good bit of wet area backing up to the creek back there. We'd have paved streets, community water, stick-built homes. In that most recent sketch plan, there's a community area with a pavilion for the residents to gather and have some picnics and barbecues. We have, as James has pointed out, accommodated staff's request to have an emergency vehicle turn around at 800 feet. And we'd ask that you approve it. Staff recommended it, and I'll try to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Are there any questions?
This land adjoining it on each side is both farmland.
Oh, let's see. On the right is, the right we show on our sketch on the east side is zoned R40, and on the west side is zoned R40 as well. Now, they're neither one of those are residential at this time. They're both, the one on the east is cultivated land, and the one on the west is probably timberland, being Shepherd Properties owns it. But they're both, the zoning is R40 on both sides of it.
What about a buffer between the farmland and the back of the houses?
I guess we would do whatever the ordinance requires that we do if we were abutting. James, you might have to help me out if there's some requirements there that we need to put buffers, but we're butting up to the same type of zone, it appears to me.
There appears to be a buffer already. Is there already a natural buffer of sorts, trees?
I'm not sure exactly how,
These lots
How that
too,
is.
Mr. Chandler, these lots, we've got them fronting on the proposed road only 100 feet, so they're gonna be 400 feet deep. They're gonna be long and deep, so most of your homes are gonna be up near the proposed street at probably a 40 or 50 foot setback, and the house is gonna be 40 foot wide, so you're gonna have 300 foot deep backyard.
They're gonna put their garden in.
Put the garden in probably.
Back fence, and they don't complain to the farmer.
Yeah, might I address that a little bit too, because you've got currently cultivated
east
land
is
on
probably
both sides of you, because the Shepherds own a bunch of row crop land they rent out, and I went by there last weekend too. You've got it on pretty much almost all your lots, because I can tell from this photograph and looking at the sketch plan, your two big lots are the only ones, and even one of them joins this back little field on the east side, but you're backing up to it on both sides. And I remember actually the first streetlight district we just approved, the Ranjo one, when we approved this subdivision, this is all in an R25 zone, but this subdivision abuts a field in a funny little L shape on like three sides of it, and we had they had to put a buffer, even though it's all zoned R25, because the owners of that land still use it as agriculture, even though it's not zoned ag, because they didn't zone it that way. It was blanket zoned, like I think this probably
Yeah,
was. So.
it's probably with blanket zone in the
Yeah.
beginning.
And I guess the concern is the dust and the spraying from, adjoining cultivated land into these properties. So do you think that the owner would agree we can add that condition, correct?
well,
Sketch plan, can we?
so I was just referencing the ordinance here where single-family planned residential developments abuts vacant parcels. 25-foot landscape buffer would be required at the side and rear property lines of adjoining properties. So 25-foot buffer or 15-foot with a wall, fence, or berm would be required.
Already required, so that's part of the ordinance.
What would be required in that 25-foot buffer, James? I mean, could we plant pine trees in that 25-foot buffer and that be sufficient, or it's got to be more than that?
Well, it goes, the ordinance anticipates having some low, medium, and high level trees or shrubs. So,
Yeah, there's a graphic reference in the ordinance as to what kind of buffer would be required. Of course, I'm not sure I read the provision the same way, Mr. Pope, about the way I read it. Single and two-family planned residential development abuts Ag 5. Residents, well, it does say vacant parcels. I stand corrected. So I think that certainly, or expressly implies that a buffer would be required if you've got vacant parcels abutting it. Therefore, it would have to go to the 25-foot buffer standard and with the designs standards required in the ordinance. So you're correct. But even if that weren't the case, I think if P&Z and the county commission wanted to require one as a condition, they could.
I know when we were in the big meetings, the farmers that were participating in that expressed a need for a buffer on any land where subdivision went in adjoining current active farmland. So if it's not a condition, we'll make it a condition. Propose.
All right, are there any other questions? Then we will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve and add the condition that there will be a 25-foot buffer adjoining all the current farmland.
Second from Mr. Lane. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
We thank y'all.
Now, we do, item number 5, so then how do we address,
Mr. Anderson,
Jim? We've got, even though we don't need,
I think probably maybe just for formality's sake, if the applicant could just ask to withdraw the variance, just for the record.
I'll read it and then withdraw it, okay? Again, J-Quad Development has submitted an application requesting a variance for the maximum length of a cul-de-sac street of 800 feet from Appendix A Subdivision Regulations Schedule 772. The variance amount requested is for 565 feet. The property is located on P.W. Clifton Road, and again, Mr. Anderson will be acting as agent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think we would like to request that the variance be removed because we feel we've satisfied those requirements in the revised sketch plan.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, from Mr. Chandler, second from Ms. Reiner. All those in favor of withdrawal? It has been withdrawn. Thank you,
you.
sir. All right, Stephen and Tanya Bragg have applied for a conditional use to allow for a home occupation cottage industry. The property is located at 2500 Clary Road, and Stephen Bragg will be serving as agent. Now, this is a conditional use, and a conditional use is a legislative action, so there'll be a final determination for this item on October 1st, that's right, October 1st, 5:30 in this room. Now, we do have several people signed up to speak, so I just wanted to remind you of that. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This location, as you see on the map, is, I guess, south of Brooklet, in southeast Bullock County. This is the area zoning map, the parcel that's being applied for the cottage industry. It is an Ag 5 parcel with surrounding zoning being agricultural. Current use of the property is again, agricultural use. And access to the property is along county-maintained dirt road, which is Cleary Road. And the applicant is currently in the process of building the primary structure, single-family home, and I believe an accessory structure that would serve the use, personal use, as well as perhaps some use with the business, but given the nature of the business that's being proposed, which is primarily conducted off-site and having some support vehicles, work trucks that would be parked on site, from my understanding, we just recommended a condition for screening and buffering for the vehicles that are used for the business. And then section 1425, the home occupation standards for cottage industry would also apply. Staff feels that the applicants would be able to meet all of those standards based on the property and proposed scale and use of the property or of the business. So with that in mind, staff recommends approval with a condition.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Bragg?
Well, Mr. Pope pretty much summed it up. We're building a primary residence. We're putting up a 40 by 72 shop, which I was gonna house some of the equipment we used, so it would pretty much be out of sight. We do residential tree work, so everything we do is pretty much not nowhere around the house or the residence. And other than that, everything's mobile. I mean, the business itself's mobile. So it's basically just a pole barn to house everything, really.
All right, thank you. There may be some questions for
Okay.
you, so you will have over 9 minutes to come back and
Okay,
speak.
all right,
Thank you. And I misspoke a while ago. This meeting will be, this item will be heard on October 3rd at 5:30. We've had 2 planning and zoning meetings this week, and so the first one on Tuesday night will be heard October 1st. This one will be heard October 3rd. All right, first person signed up to speak is Claudia Hazel.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing the residents of the county to come before you and speak. I'm Claudia Hazel. I'm co-owner of Hazelnut Pastures with my husband, Jeremy Hazel. We're located directly across the road at 2385 Cleary Road, just outside of Brooklet. Stephen and Tanya Bragg owns the Bragg's Tree and Stump Removal business. They currently live and run their business out of their residence at 1701 Patty Lane in the Leafield community. They're in the process of building a house, which they've already said, and intend to move their business to Cleary Road by applying for this conditional cottage industry permit. I have some pictures that I actually took this afternoon. I drove by their residence. This is more than a few vehicles. A cottage industry is a small business that operates within a cottage or home. This usually includes businesses such as breads, jams, soaps, candles, pottery, sewing, metalwork. All these items are made within the home and within a secondary building on the property. The item is sold either online, farmers markets, or away from the home or cottage. Bullitt County Ordinance Section 1425F, which was stated, clearly says the business is to be conducted within the enclosed structures. Stephen and Tanya's tree stump removal business is not a cottage industry. They do not produce a product. They offer a service to the community. This business requires large and heavy equipment. Currently, all this equipment is parked in their yard on Patty Lane. They have stump grinders, bucket lift trucks, several debris trailers, commercial mulchers. I believe there's a couple more pictures that are there. This business cannot be contained within their house. They have a building permit for a pole barn, which Mr. Stephen stated is 72 by 40, which is 2,880 square feet. This exceeds the square footage of a cottage industry, section 1425E. That is only supposed to be 2,400 square feet to qualify for a cottage industry. Cleary Road is zoned as agricultural and residential. There are 6 houses that touch that property. There are 10 children that live in those houses who attend Bullitt County schools. There's a pecan orchard, crop fields, and our farm that has a market garden and livestock, which are in clear view of 2500 Cleary Road. I think the next one might be, that's the area on Cleary Road. That's their current house from above. They have a huge burn pile in the back of their house currently, and they have brought debris from other work sites to the location on 2500 and burned it. It is smoldered for months or days and weeks, and there's still piles of debris on the property. Cleary Road is a county dirt road that becomes almost impassable after an average rainstorm. Even tonight, we might slip on the way home. It is not intended for high, heavy equipment. And the storm that just came through a month ago, and even last year, that washed out Brandon Pond Road, that is still blocked and closed. Cleary Road had multiple locations where Upper Black Creek flowed over the road. I repeat, Stephen and Tanya Bragg's stump removal business is not a cottage industry. It is classified as a manufacturing industry by Georgia Class Code 2702. It is not agriculture. Forestry is agriculture. It produces a crop or a product. Tree and stump removal is a service for homeowners and businesses. And I would like to give my time to the other neighbors. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Donna Berwick, do I say that correctly?
Close enough. I'm used to it. Hi. Here's a picture of your house.
Do you have the picture?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's a picture.
Okay. My house actually is literally directly in front of the house that they are building. Okay. We know you can't stop them from building a house and all that kind of stuff. We get that. It's the business part that is the issue. I live there alone and moved there as a peaceful country, quiet living. I didn't move there to have, there's that little tiny strip, if the map was up, you could see it. There's a little tiny strip that it runs between my property and his property that is pine trees. Okay, he cleared out his side to put in his driveway and put in his power and his electric and all that kind of stuff on his side. And I have a small patch of pine trees that is, you know, on my side. That is the only barrier as far as hearing this heavy equipment, and I'm talking a lot of heavy equipment. I'm not talking a small tree service. This is a big, large tree service. I mean, with a lot of vehicles that are gonna be coming in and out of that road, morning, afternoon, I mean, constantly. I mean, it's, you know, just the part of building the house now is already driving me nuts, but, you know, you can't stop that. It's the business part that is my issue. And one of the main issues I have with that is I am sure that all of his employees, however many he has, 5, 6, whatever, I'm sure they will be driving and meeting him there at his location if he gets this commercial permit to be able to put it there. They're gonna meet him there every morning to go off and do their jobs. They're gonna come back every afternoon and get in their cars and leave and go home. I don't know these people. These people are not vetted to me to be in a residential area that is zoned residential, but, you know, as of now. And it makes me nervous. Like I said, I'm a single, you know, adult. I live there alone and, you know, it's not, I don't know who these people are coming in and out. I don't know what they're looking to maybe possibly get into, or you just don't know any day, you know, anymore any days. And so you have to put those things into consideration too. It is an absolute safety risk in my concern, especially with all the kids and stuff that we do have in our neighborhood that is right, literally right there. So, that's mine, but I don't know if there's anybody else that has anything to speak or, yeah, ready?
Yeah, there is
Thank you.
Jeremy Hazel.
As my wife Claudia said, I just want to be brief. I'm a Bullitt County school bus driver, so I want to come from that point of view. I have no problem with you guys building a house, no problem whatsoever. My concern is the heavy equipment, especially on Cleary Road. I've actually drove that route today. It's not my assigned route, but I drove it with the rainstorm. That road is rough when it rains. And I have to take my bus in and out every day, so I'm going out and in at least 4 times a day on that road. And then there's the route driver that drives that route, and his bus goes down that road three times a day, sorry. Especially in the curve, right there where there's clay. It's just, I'm afraid that all the heavy equipment, and I'm even afraid for them with their big bucket trucks and heavy equipment, when it gets wet, it gets wet and slippery. And last year we had in that corner, 3 times bus went into the ditch and had to be pulled out and actually stopped up the road. And so Cleary was, from a school system point of view, transportation, they actually thought about putting Cleary Road as a do not drive when it rains on their list, but they didn't at this point. But that's all I wanted to say, is just my consideration is the increased heavy truck traffic to tear up Cleary Road, and then that's going to affect us getting our kids to school and home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob and Leah Sousey, you've signed up to speak. There's 50 seconds left, but I believe we also have a letter, or are they not here? We have a letter in opposition from them, is that correct?
She is the neighbor that this is taken from her porch, and looking directly at the house that they're building right now, and there's a clear view to the property. She works in Savannah, and she wasn't able to get here in time, and that is why she wrote you all the letter.
Okay, we do have this letter of record. Yeah. All right, there are 43 seconds left. Charlie Kinship.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Kinship, and I own a property just down the road, 377 Doe Lane. And I would second everything that's been said here. Our road is extremely rough, even with the slightest bit of rain. It's impassable a lot of times, and there are a lot of children, a lot of animals, as you know, with agriculture and rural living. So I really don't want to have a lot of heavy equipment in our immediate neighborhood. So they can build their house, that's wonderful. But I have a lot of tree service people that I work with. I'm familiar with the equipment, and Cleary Road will be demolished. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sherry Stroud, you have a few seconds left, or if you'd like to stand at least.
Well, I did know everything that they said. I butt up to their property. I have no problem with the Braggs. I butt up to their property. They talk about a buffer. There's no buffer. They wiped the buffer out. What buffer's gonna be put back in?
Thank you. All right, Mr. Bragg, you have 9 minutes left and some odd seconds that you can speak and answer some of these questions.
You can go to the picture of the property.
Like the entrance. The only buffer we had was our driveway to get in. So you see the pines, we had to take that out to put a driveway in. As far as the equipment everybody's talking about, we have a bucket truck, which is no heavier than a school bus. When it rains, we don't work. You can't take trees down in the rain. So normally, like if it rains, a torrential downpour, we don't go out for 2 or 3 days. You can't get in someone's yard and twist and turn. The heaviest piece of equipment I got is a bucket truck, and it's no heavier than a school bus. Other than that, it's pickup trucks, F-150s, 250s, 350s, the same vehicles running up and down the road every day. They won't hear noise from no chipper. I'm not chipping at the house. We chip into a truck on the site. All that's disposed of at the Bullitt County landfill. So nothing, they will hear no noise other than us leaving and coming home. And I don't know about all these employees they're talking about, because it's pretty much family-owned. I do have one other guy that comes and drives a truck out of there.
All right, they were concerned about a burn pile. Can you address that?
The burn pile is the 60 trees. You see all the chips? 60 trees. That's where I grinded the stumps to make the driveway in there. And then we cleared out a place to put the pole barn. And there's still logs there from that I hadn't burned yet. Yeah, exactly.
Any questions for Mr. Bragg from this commission? Mr. Bath?
Can you go back to the picture of their current house from above? She gave you some pictures that,
Yes, they're one of my pictures.
the one from overhead.
Aerial.
So you said there's no burn pile, but that thing looks massive. I know that's your current house, but
You see that big open area right there into the woods? Because in the beginning, we were going to stay at this house. And occasionally, when I was clearing that, I was burning that in the backyard at one point in time. But sometimes you go to the landfill when it rains, they're closed. So I dump it, I pick it back up, put it in my truck and haul it. I can show you tickets after tickets after tickets where we don't. Ask any of my neighbors, I don't burn there.
that's my only question.
How many employees do you have, including family or whatever?
I got 3 other guys that work for me, that 2 of them meet me on the job, 1 comes and drives the truck out of there. Both of my sons drive a pickup truck, and I drive the bucket when we take it out. I got 2 climbers that climb all the time.
So basically 4 people.
Yes, sir.
I got a question for you, James. In the letter we got, which you don't have a copy of, so I can give it to you. It says cottage industry is limited at 2,400 square feet. Is that accurate? Because in that case, she is correct, and this wouldn't technically apply for cottage industry at 2,880 square feet.
This was just given to us after we got here tonight.
Yeah.
Here's the ordinance right here. I highlighted it.
If you can give it to him.
Mr. Pope.
Here, if you step up there and.
It's right here.
My main question is, if it's cottage industry at 2,880 and the ordinance says 2,400, she's not wrong.
Correct, and I spoke with Ms. Bragg about that. I handed them the copy of the supplemental standards and the ordinance itself and advised them of the square footage. We went over those documents, and it was pointed out that the building would be bigger than 2,400 square foot, but they would only be using 2,400 square foot for their use of the cottage industry.
Technically, 2,400 square foot won't be used. It's going to be a 6-bay garage. Our personal camper will be in one, and a ski boat will be in the other. Only 4 bays will be actually walled in.
I have a question from Mr. Couch or Mr. Pope.
I had one more question.
How do we control the use of 2,400 square feet only?
Ms. Jean Ann, my question kind of implies that. So the county would be requiring him to screen this, correct? And Is that, didn't I understand that? So are you planning on doing that by walling in the part of your building that you're gonna park your stuff in?
Just the building where we park, like the tree equipment, will be walled in.
Yeah, so wouldn't that kinda, the county's requiring him to be where people can't see his equipment. So, and if he's gonna wall in less than up to 2,400 square feet, that's the only area that this cottage industry would allow him to use. So we would be doing
Acceptable
that.
is what we're asking. That is acceptable.
Yes, it is not to exceed 2,400 square feet.
Since it is a being classified cottage industry and a service is not listed in a cottage industry, can it be a cottage industry?
I would have to double check exactly how the ordinance reads, but he meets the requirements. As we went through the ordinance, he don't exceed the employees, he didn't exceed the square footage.
But he
There are
doesn't produce
several other
it.
factors that factor into that he did meet that would allow him to be there.
So I would just point out, section 1425A talks about that list is not exhaustive, it's illustrative. And so there's some room there for zoning administrator interpretation. But there's also the 2,400 square foot portion. Yeah, I agree, there's got to be something there that, how do we regulate it? But it's not that you have to conduct everything within that building. It's just that if it's conducted outside, it's got to be sufficiently buffered. So the ordinance anticipates that if something was, because there's other cottage industries that have service trucks and things that pertain to the business. So those just have to be screened. It's not that it has to be totally enclosed within a building. The 2,400 square foot that's the limitation on the use of the building if there's a building used. Maybe that clarifies something, but yeah, I think we felt that there was, with knowing the intent of the business or how the business operated, the screening portion, I mean, we think that it's allowed to have something outside the building, just parked there, but it's got to be screened. So,
All right, if that clarifies, is there any more discussion? Now, this will be heard for final determination on October 3rd, so it may give you time to talk with some of the neighbors and maybe work some things out, whatever we decide to recommend.
Okay.
So just be aware of that. If there are no more questions, is there a motion?
Make a motion to deny.
All right, we got a motion to deny. Is there a second? Got a second from Mr. Lane. All those in favor? All right, that's 3. All those opposed, the opposition? All right, it's 3-2. Is that correct? All right. Then again, this will be heard for final determination. We will recommend denial. But like I said, you've got some time to talk and maybe come to some areas that you can live with. All right, thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda. Zacchaeus and Sherry Grant have applied for a conditional use to operate a family personal care home at 2707 Cliffanecker Road. Sherry Grant will be acting as servant. And again, this is a conditional use, and it'll be heard for final determination from our recommendation on October 3rd, 5:30 in this room. Mr. Pope.
thank you, Madam Chair. All right, this application or this location on 2707 Cliffanecker Road is a current, the structure is presently built, so it is an existing structure. This is the zoning map for the property and the area. The Ag 5 zoning does allow for the conditional use for the personal care home. We do have standards for personal care homes embedded within our ordinance, and based on everything is presented and knowing the regulations by the state of Georgia, we believe that the person or the applicant can meet those regulations. But this is the aerial of the property. And upon our site visit, here are the photos. And so the conditional use family personal care home would take place within the structure as presented. We just recommend, we recommend approval with the following, or with a condition which mirrors what the state of Georgia limits on up to 6 persons being served by the personal care home. If you go over the 6 threshold, there's, it just goes into different levels, but we would keep it at the first level allowed by the state with this condition, so. And with that,
Ms. Grant?
Hello. Yes, just any questions?
There is no anybody signed up to speak in opposition. So are there any questions for Ms. Grant? And you understand that there is a condition on this, that it's only to be used as a personal care home. Anything else has to come back before us.
Yes.
I do have a question, James, on, the conditional use. It says that, number 5, and it says the use shall be limited to the hours of 8 to 6. But this is gonna be
A 24
a
hour.
24/7, right?
People will be living in this residence?
They live there, yeah.
yeah, I don't, that may possibly be, I think that's probably a typo, to be honest with you. But that, unless it's in a condition, it wouldn't, we wouldn't be able to hold anybody to that. So we would just, before it goes to Board of Commissioners, strike through that, because you're right. I mean, it would, that really wouldn't apply. But everything would really just go back to the standards in the ordinance. So,
And so, Ms. Grant, if I understand right, they will each morning be transported by y'all, you or someone, to your other facility, is that?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a van that I have with my adult day center. So they will leave with me in the morning, and I'm overseeing them during the day, and we take them back home myself, and so I'm transporting them myself.
All right, if there are no other discussion, we'll entertain a motion of recommendation. A motion to approve with the condition. Yes. Stan, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bath, all those in favor? We will recommend approval to the county commissioners, October 3rd, 5:30. Penny Properties LLC has applied for a conditional use to allow one additional principal building on a single lot. The property is located at 117 Dodd Circle. Penny Neesmith will be acting as agent. Again, this is a conditional use, so we'll be heard on October 3rd. Mr. Pope?
thank you, Madam Chair. This lot acreage is .68. It's just to the north of Statesboro. It actually borders the city of Statesboro, city limits. And you can see off of Dodd Circle, there is a highway commercial zone that was, I think when zoning came into place, placed there. But there's one structure on the property, which is a manufactured home. And in highway commercial zoning, again, it's just for a primary structure or a principal building for a lot. We're just looking at kind of, what is the use for? And then the use would be essentially what it is now, is just an additional home on the lot. We advise the applicant to, I guess, check with the health department and double check that the septic system would you know, that they get a septic tank, on there, and the health department, has come back and agreed that it could fit, but, so again, just looking at the use, it's not gonna change, the principal type of business going on that property or business being, because it's highway commercial, but there's no business, it's just another another home on the property, but.
Is the item in the next agenda, the particular additional building that
So-
wants to go in this area?
That's correct. So the next agenda item is for consideration of that second principal structure to be a manufactured home. So, you know, just going by number 8, you could, if it was approved, then you could build a single-family home on it, according to setbacks and all that, of course. But, so the applicant has applied for a manufactured home to be that second,
Be that
that home,
structure.
yeah.
All right,
And they meet setbacks on this lot?
Mr. Patton took a look at it, and the setbacks for highway commercial zoning is a little bit less than in residential zoning, so, but yes, I believe they can meet that setback.
Ms. Neesmith?
I think Mr. Pope said just about everything that I would want to say. There are a lot of other, across the road from this property, back when he had that plat up, there are many .34 lots out there with mobile homes on them. So that's just any question?
Are there any questions for Ms. Neesmith? And you could probably just stay up here for the next item.
Okay, okay.
All right, if there are no questions, do we have a motion? Motion to approve from Mr. Lane, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Chandler, all those in favor? 3, all those opposed? 2, 3 to 2. All right, then we'll go on to the next one, which is, the conditional use to allow for a manufactured home on the highway commercialized zone property. Again, the property is located at 117 Dodge Circle. Again, Board of Commissioners will hear this for final determination on October the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the only thing I would add, again, being this the same property, the current structure that's on the property would match what's being proposed. So we didn't see any issue with that, so we recommended approval.
All right, are there any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion, a recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second for Mr. Lane? All those in favor? Again, that's 3, all those opposed to 2. All right, recommend to approve for the county commissioners, thank you. All right, Kyle Haddon has submitted an application to rezone approximately 10.55 acres from R80 to R3, which is multiple family residential, for the purpose of creating a multi-family housing development. The property is located at 424 Brandon Drive. Kyle Haddon will be serving as agent. And again, this is a conditional rezone, so this is a legislative action to be heard on October 3rd. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property is just to the west of Statesboro, not far from the bypass. As you can see, it almost backs up to the bypass, but Brandon Drive, as you can see on the existing zoning map, there's R25, well, kind of a mix of zoning nearby, R40, R25, but there is R2, which would be 2 family structures. Probably fit, the existing use probably fits more as an R3, but, so there's there is some existing zoning nearby that, you know, I guess that kind of goes along with what's being proposed. This is an aerial of the property. And I'm going to try to get a better sketch plan before it goes to commissioners. I apologize, but it's a little difficult to read. But I think you can see what's outlined as the structures, and then this development would be on individual septic systems, which, you know, that's being designed for and accounted for in this plan. And again, that's the property at our site visit. That's the existing neighborhood across the street entrance. And with that, we have 3 conditions that we recommend if approval is granted.
All right, Mr. Haddon, are you here?
Mr. Haddon is here, but I'll be acting as agent, I guess, for Mr. Haddon tonight. Cody Rogers, EMC Engineering, 1211 Merchant Way. Mr. Pope said it well. I wanted to key in on a few things. It's a 10.5 acre property. There are some wetlands in the back along the bypass. We're currently showing 48 single-family townhomes attached. That's across 8 different buildings. Everything you see on that site plan is GIS level, so it is subject to change. The wetlands may grow. You can see there's a good bit of fall on this property. So all things considered, this would be absolute max density, and there's a chance that density would go down with actual survey wetland delineations. We are planning a community water system. There are several in the area. Community well water system. There are several in the area. We would attempt first to tie onto those systems before we would drill our own well. We are using septic fields, septic tanks and drain fields. Currently, detention ponds are not shown around the cul-de-sac. In our final design, we will provide them, seeing as how the property is currently trees. Like Mr. Pope said, the property is R80. We're asking for R3. We're adjacent to R2 and 2 other R80 uses. It's a similar use along our northern frontage, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, sir. We do have several people signed up to speak, so there may be some questions for you. Barbara Seaman.
I didn't know we could bring visual aids, so I don't have any. But my name is Barbara Seaman. My husband, David Seaman, is with me here. And we are the next door neighbors to 424 Brannan Drive. We live at 422. The reason we came to talk with you tonight is that we had not been told anything about this plan. In fact, our first information was when we got the letter from you. Now, let me try to make this clear. We moved there in 1993. We have had the same neighbors for that entire time. We found out a few months ago that our next door neighbor, the surviving member of the family, had sold his house. So we contacted him and said, what's going on? And he said a family had bought the house and they would be moving in. There was no mention about any development or anything. So this came as a surprise to us. Now, I'm not saying that I am against development. The question is, well, exactly how is this going to impact our neighborhood? Now, some of my questions that I had tonight have already been answered. I understand there will be 48 units. Is that correct? On the
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
48, and each unit is an individual house, or are they connected?
They're connected in pods of 6 in general, with 1 pod of 5.
Okay, pods of 6 and 5, okay. I also had another question about the water supply and the septic tanks. That's a lot of septic tanks for a fairly small area. All of us living out there already have wells and septic tanks, and of course, there's some concern about whether there will be enough water and enough drain fields for the septic tanks. So I would like to have some information about that before I can even tender an opinion about what's going to happen here. I'm also curious about what will happen to the existing structure on the property. I don't know if you have any information about that or not.
It would be demolished.
It would be
And he can
demolished.
address that. He has several minutes to speak, so he can answer some of these questions when he
Okay.
comes back up.
Okay, so the existing house would be demolished. Also, we were wondering, would access to this development be only through Brandon Drive, or would there be access to the bypass? Now, I'm assuming there would not be access to the bypass. So if there is only access to Brandon Drive, that's going to add quite a bit of traffic to Brandon Drive. So I wonder what considerations have been made there for that. Let's see. Most of my questions have already been answered. And my husband, David, do you have more questions? Yeah. Okay.
He spoke, yeah. Mr. Siemens, your turn. This is David Seaman.
Hello, I'm David Seaman. I live next door to this property. And I want to start by saying this whole meeting has been quite mysterious to me because in spite of the evident microphones, I have had great difficulty hearing anything that anybody said except Mr. Brandon. Thank you so much for using your microphone. And pardon me for speaking loud like a teacher in a classroom, which I was at Georgia Southern for 25 years. And I also want to say that I do not find this a, what should I say, an open and transparent meeting because very few of the people are identified. I don't know what the qualifications of Mr. Pope are, who is speaking on what behalf. And when the members of the commissioners speak, usually their mouth is hidden behind their computer, and I don't know who's talking. And so just let me say that as a beginning, speaking as a private citizen who feels like, I know you all know each other, but I feel like I snuck into your secret meeting. Do you understand that? I don't know what measures you can take to correct that, but it'd be very helpful in the future for people who are just sitting watching, for you all to identify yourselves and make it clear what your purpose is. Mr. Couch, I don't know, what are these desks to the side? That's very confusing to me. So the first thing I want to say about this property is, as my wife indicated, we were for 30 years friendly neighbors. When we found that the house was empty, one day there was a dog barking over there, and we went over and found that squatters had moved in and put a dog in a crate behind the house. And we, at that time, we called the police and the animal control. And you're beginning to get a picture, I hope, of how we were completely blindsided by this whole development project. To have 48 residences next to us sounds like a very much of a squeeze play. We're sitting on 2 acres. And so on one side, we have a very nice bunch of townhouses where the folks are pleasant and we never have any problem with them. We're cut off from them with a tall wooden fence. Would there be a big fence to cut us separate from this subdivision that's to be put next to us? Or are we going to suddenly have children running into our backyard? We wonder about things like that, and we wonder what will be the effect on our property values. Because Brandon Drive is not just out in nowhere. There are very nice subdivisions, Hazelwood, Iron Gate, Country Squire, right across the street. And so we thought we were in a nice neighborhood, and maybe there will be nice neighbors. We look forward to having nice neighbors. But It's all very mysterious and quite a sudden surprise to us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. All right, I guess, Cody, you signed up to speak, but you've already spoken. Kyle Haddon has signed up to speak. And he'd be for the,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, my name's Kyle Haddon. My wife and I, I'm the applicant for this development. We moved back to Statesboro 3 years ago, and when we did, we were looking, everybody was trying to find, housing at that time, and, it was slim picking. So, really everything for rent is for college kids. There's nothing for young families. There's, nothing that a working professional or somebody like that would want to live. So our whole reason for do this is to kind of have something for those folks and, somebody kind of my age that, wants a quiet side of town. I actually live 2 plots down from this property right now. And I know they had mentioned traffic, that there's really not that much traffic on Brandon. I'm on it every single day. So like I said, I think this is going to be a great development for our area.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And you may be called back for more questions, so you've got 7 minutes left for, all right. Mr. Carlton Gradshaw?
I am Carlton Crenshaw, relatively new to Bullock County, and I came here from Warner Robins, Georgia, and was there when Warner Robins or Houston County exploded like we're getting ready to explode. And I talked some issues relative to Brandon because we live in Hazelwood. And I know that the traffic in Bullock County is exploding just like Houston County did. Concerned about children, busing, and Brandon has been a relatively quiet street because there are many retired people in and around that community. And I'll speak out to you occasionally so that you know why I'm here. I'm not opposed to expansions, and I'm not opposed to anything that's being proposed, except the fact that that whole area of Brandon is pretty much a retirement community. And if you know what's taking place at Country Club in Brandon, they're expanding the residential health care center up there. And I just hope that in the planning portion of this, that the planners are not only looking at the request to build some facilities on Brandon, but one narrow strip to have access to 48 units that are going to be back there? And what about parking?
Yeah, you need to address us, and he can answer those questions when he
okay.
comes back up. Thank you,
Well,
sir.
the number of people that are going to live there will have maybe one car, maybe multiple cars. We don't have any traffic control on Brandon. And when Brandon runs into Cypress Lake Road, that's a dangerous intersection if you live around that particular portion. And I got some advice who I ought to talk to about that. But I hope that you, from the planning portion of it, that you're carefully considering, is this the best place for this kind of development to go into the overall aspect of Bullock County when bus traffic, children's safety, in my opinion, I'm a father of 5 children, so they've always been a major consideration. And I hope that anything that you all do from a planning and zoning perspective will consider the young people who will live on a very restricted kind of community and it's safe right now. But I've seen some young people in Bullock County College and otherwise that think this is the access road to NASCAR.
And we thank you, Mr. Crenshaw.
Thank you very much. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
and there'll be some questions, all right, all right, Rogers, you coming back up?
All right, I tried to write down everybody's concerns. Hopefully I got everybody. I'll start out with the water supply and septic. Obviously, you know, there's an existing well there now. I'm saying well there now. There is an existing community water system adjacent. We'll need to analyze what the capacity of that water system is. In terms of pulling water from the aquifer, I don't think this is going to put any kind of strain on our aquifer. I know we're kind of sensitive to that right now for other reasons. As far as the septic tanks go and drain fields, the Department of Public Health will not let us put more than is allowed on this lot. So if we get into permitting, we find that the soils are poorer than we believe they are, we will be made to amend our plan and we will lose density subsequently. So that will be taken care of later in the process. As far as trip gen considerations or traffic considerations go, with 48 units and roughly 7 to 8 trips per day per unit typically is what's estimated there. We will have to comply with a full traffic study. We will have a right turn lane likely that we'll have to add onto Brandon. There's a possibility for a left turn lane with those numbers. That'll be something that's fleshed out through that traffic study and analysis. In terms of other traffic impacts, I don't see it going any further than that. I wouldn't see any impacts to either the Country Club or Cypress Lake intersections. No upgrades needed there with this particular development. In terms of keeping kids or residents of this development inside of their properties, we're showing right now that 25-foot vegetated buffer. We would like to keep that undisturbed if possible. Due to the fall across this property, grading may necessitate that we take those trees out to grade it and then plant back. We would like to plant back to the county screening requirements that would typically act like a vegetated fence instead of a fence itself. However, we would be open to discussing a fence if that's a strong point of contention. Parking, there's room for 3 cars per house here, and that's staying outside of the right-of-way, 2 in the driveway and 1 inside each garage. We've also got overflow parking up there near the front or near Brandon, where we're showing a mail kiosk and actually some playground equipment right now, activity area for this smaller neighborhood. And finally, I'd just like to end with, we are within the comprehensive plan, which can't hurt.
Are there any questions from this board for Mr. Rogers?
So do you have a conceptual drawing of what one of these units would look like?
You mean as in a floor plan?
Well, how it's gonna look from the outside and where you're saying 3 cars, 1 in the garage and 2 in front of the unit?
Yes, sir.
So there's gonna be basically no yard in front of each unit. It's just gonna be.
That's right. The yard would be in the back. There would be no front yard, which is typical of townhome developments. That's not atypical of this type of development.
And here's another opportunity I'll bring up, that whatever this board votes to recommend, it might be a good idea to get with some of these neighbors and talk to them and alleviate some of their fears and answer some of their questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd be happy to stick around afterwards and talk with.
And then there may be some who'd like to talk to you. That would be great. That
Sure.
might be a good idea. All right, are there any other questions or comments from this board? All right, do we have a motion? There are 3 conditions, and Mr. Rogers, and y'all agree with the 3 conditions, and one of them was that playground.
Would you please read those for the record?
All right. First, all right, the principal use approved for this property will be an R3 residential district as depicted in the sketch plan for this application. The development shall include a playground or other amenity within a pocket park or open space.
Yes, ma'am.
And last, private solid waste collection services are required. All solid waste and refuse containers for household garbage shall be enclosed, and the number and placement shall be approved by the county zoning administrator.
Just for clarification on that, is that just saying polycarts are allowed, or are we saying we need to have a dumpster enclosure?
Mr. Pope?
I think the ordinance anticipates either or.
Okay. Understood.
No problem with any of those conditions?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I do have one other question. So I see where the extra parking is, like up front, and then behind that is where the playground is that, am I right?
Yes, ma'am. The end of that parking, if you were pulling straight into that parking area, is actually the mail kiosk, and behind that is the playground area.
Okay, what is gonna be between the road and that playground?
So that we have that 25-foot buffer shown, that's going to be against Brandon as well, which again would be right now a planted buffer, 25-foot planted buffer. But again, if there's point of contention or recommendation there, we would listen.
And I think if the playground was I don't know the exact concern there, but it would be a common concern about noise from a playground. So I don't know if the board would consider having a condition moving it to the rear of the development where it's maybe more insulated.
Either that, or I think there needs to be a fence, because that's too close to that road.
What's the drainage plan? Curb and gutter, or you putting storm system to the ponds in the back?
Both. It'll have curb and gutter. It'll also have curb inlets, at least at the cul-de-sac, if not along the road as well. And that's actually what I was going to point out about putting it towards the back. That sounds like a good idea, but that's where the ponds will be. There's a chance those ponds may be wet ponds. I think it may be better if we leave it up front, and then if we desire then to place a fence around it. I think that's a better option, personally.
And you think you're gonna be able to fit 48 septic drain fields in this?
It's going to depend on the soils, on the preliminary soil data and the preliminary size of those septic systems. Yes,
What's
sir.
the width of each unit?
20 feet.
Do you know that?
Yes, sir. 20 feet.
It's 20 feet.
Well, we are talking about the
Each individual unit?
townhome unit.
Yeah,
Right.
20 feet.
Have you calculated your water runoff from your site?
For storm, like detention pond sizing? No, sir, not yet. We haven't gotten that far. We know we're gonna have to have ponds. That's why I wanted to mention that on the front end, just because they're not depicted here. We understand the open space at the bottom will be pond area.
That would be fine.
Got a lot of impervious surfaces, I think.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this until I can get a little more information on how big these ponds are gonna be, where they're gonna be, and maybe you have a little more of these questions answered. That's what I'd like to do.
And whether this was approved or not by the county commissioner, they would have to come back before with a definite plan. Was that correct?
Right, so a conceptual site plan or sketch plan, they'd have to come back for that. I think there's some things, they're proposing a density of 48 units, but I think they're gonna have to take a little harder look at what's included in the supplemental standards for these planned developments. So that, just when it comes back to you all, it's gonna probably be in a little more cleaned up version, as they typically are, but yeah, y'all would see this again if it was approved.
If it was approved.
We'd have to come back for sketch plan, right?
That's
Right.
what we're talking about.
And then we'd have to come back for preliminary plat.
No, after sketch plan, everything's administrative.
To defer? All right, we have a motion to defer, and we have a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous, so maybe you got some time to get some more definite details and talk to the neighbors.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
the main question you want to know is the size and location of the ponds?
Yeah, I'd like to see some type of rough drainage idea, and I'd really like to see how you think you're gonna fit 48 septic drain fields in this small area.
Those are shown on the plan.
Yeah, I see that, but I've built plenty of townhouses, and I don't know how it's possible. I just would like to see some more of those answers. And maybe a better sketch would help me understand that more than this sweet sketch here.
All right, thank you.
That being said, we will see you again next month, probably. If we defer it, he will not be charged again, since we asked for deferment to come back before us.
You mean like an application fee?
Right.
No.
No, so
It's
it will-
still active.
It's
in
still be
this-
active.
yeah.
That's what I'm making sure of. Mr. Chandler?
Mr. Rogers, I'd also like for you to look at the density that you've proposed a little more seriously than what you've got here.
And I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. This is not the sketch plan approval, right?
This is just a rezone.
I know, but I don't think I speak for everyone up here that we don't even want to approve the rezone until we can see, I know it's out of order a little bit, but I don't think anyone up here is comfortable approving 48 townhouses in this small of an area without a little better picture.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Just for my clarification point and maybe future guidance from the board, that zoning density that was proposed is about in between an R15 and an R8. You know, is there a recommendation, and maybe this is just for consideration when it comes back, but a recommendation of density for that particular one? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm out of turn to ask that either, but
I think if we were looking at, city water and sewage, you could look at this kind of density. I think on septic tanks and the lay of this land, I don't think it's suitable for that kind of density.
okay.
That's my opinion.
Mr. Couch might want to say something.
Well, at this point of the juncture where you're at with entitlement, and as I've said with the past for most of you who've been here quite a while, even though we try to ask a developer to give decent representations of what they're going to build, that doesn't mean that questions aren't left unanswered. And so I think what you have to always go back and focus on are the zoning standards in the ordinance. And what you're really looking at here is the density appropriate? And have we tried to provide you, or has the developer tried to provide you the requisite information that you need to make that determination whether the density in the zone that's requested is appropriate? And then once that's done, if you approve at whatever level or whatever decision you make, whether it's with additional conditions or not, maybe less density, so on and so forth, we can then move down the line of proper design. So, or if you deny it, then it's a done deal for at least 6 months. And that's it.
All right, so we will hear this again in the October meeting, correct? All right, we'll move on to Blue Water Bullock LLC has submitted an application to rezone approximately for 89.61 acres, again, from R80 to PUD1, which is a planned unit development, for the purposes of developing a mixed residential development, including single-family detached units and a single-family attached, like townhome, units. The property is located on Burkhalter Road. Mr. Steve Russian will be acting as agent, and again, the Board of Commissioners will hear this for final determination on October 3rd. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the approximate location of the property. It is within the suburban neighborhood character area, but it's, close to the boundary, but it is within the area again, of suburban neighborhood. This is the parcel is shown in blue, and then the next agenda item should also, be factored in consideration, but we'll get there. But it's those two parcels as shown. Area zoning as shown is R80, so anticipation of 80,000 square foot lots at the time it was zoned. Really nearby land uses, it is a agricultural area at current. And there are some planned developments, planned subdivisions in the vicinity, but as you can see as shown here, this is the site plan that is provided by the applicant. I guess turning off of Burkhalter Road, you have two entrances that immediately enter into the single-family dwelling portion of the planned unit development. The townhomes are in the back of the development, so it's there is some open space that meets the ordinance, the planned unit development article of the zoning ordinance. So we do believe that generally as proposed, it, can meet the ordinance. And then, of course, I have kind of going back to the last one, we do have a density table that's calculated, or as shown on the site plan, I believe we referenced that. There's, here's the picture of the property when we had a site visit. And again, the area is currently, rural open space for all intents and purposes, if you reference back to the character area. But the future development, at whatever point in time, there's some anticipation of going a little higher density. But with that, we recommend that if approval is granted, that conditions be attached. We do recommend a few conditions.
All right, Mr. Russian?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Steve Rushing, attorney here in town. Tonight, I'm agent for Blue Water Bullock, LLC. Its principals are some local builders and developers, Jason Franklin, Joey Cody, Kelly Brown, Randy Childs. They've been before you before. Also with me are two of our engineers, one of which I'll ask to come up following me, Ryan Poitras, but these are with Maxwell Reddick Engineering. Right now, the property is owned by Honey Hollow LLC. And the subject property of this application is 89.61 acres. But as you see, this at some time back in history had been an estate. They'd cut it up into maybe 10 lots, and one owner was able to reassemble all but one of them. And so Honey Hollow has acquired those lots as one, which is the 89 acres, and then the one lot that had not been consolidated by the prior owner is the next item on your agenda, the 9.15. But they're all this same project that you see on the screen. So I'll kind of be talking about both of them together. In fact, we have since resurveyed both parcels together, and it actually came out to a slightly more, 99.12 acres for all of that property that you see there. And there is a pending contract between Honey Hollow LLC and the Blue Water Group. I'm glad you've got the sketch plan pulled up there. Again, as you've heard it with some of these others, until we get all our testing done, we kind of show you what the maximum would be if everything worked out in our favor, which comes out to 239 units. And there's 101 proposed single-family homes up front, and the 138 townhome lots in the back, along with those amenities shown. And again, this is all only possible, Commissioner Chandler, if we have city water and sewer. And that's what is proposed to come to this property down Burkhalter. The location, it is 1.25 miles from the intersection with Highway 80 East. And if you'll recall earlier this year, you approved, or you recommended, and the county approved another PUD 1 right there, just as you turn, headed this direction. And that's where city water will be picked up from there and carried to this project. So between us and Highway 80, there is already, I think, one or two subdivisions. I know Old Indian Trail is there, plus the PUD 1 that's just been approved. And then just beyond this property is another subdivision called Stanford subdivision. So in addition to the localized ag use, what you see right there, but there are subdivisions in both directions on Burkhalter. It will be developed in phases. Well, obviously, we'll look at doing the single family first. Hopefully, you've received and seen our PUD report that Maxwell Reddick did. That was I thought, a great report, and it looked lengthy, but there's a lot of exhibits there, but it gives a good good description of what we're proposing there, and I think Ryan will come and speak a little bit more on that. But in any event, as you see, we do propose these amenities and the open space as you would normally see in a PUD area. And we reviewed the county staff report, and I thought they did a good job again at analyzing this. And of course, they recommended approval. And if you're looking at the analysis, I think most of those were favorable. Of the suggested conditions, I have no opposition to the first two. The third one, there is a streetlight ordinance presently that we would prefer to follow that ordinance, but if it gets changed, we'll follow whatever ordinance that the county puts in place for streetlights. As for the comprehensive plan, as Mr. Pope indicated, it is in the suburban neighborhood land use character area, which anticipates PUDs. We attempt to take full advantage of that PUD classification with what you see up there in our sketch. It will add some traffic to Burkhalter Road. However, unlike some of the developments that you've heard this week, we've already done a traffic report, and it is in your PUD report that you've received. And according to that, there is a measure that they require, and it's been added to the condition, and that is a northbound left turn lane at driveway 1, which we will certainly install. But they even looked at the intersection at Highway 80 and said that no additional measures would be required just as a result of this project. So I'm going to ask Mr. Porthers to come up with some remaining time. And if we run out of time, I do want to ask you, if you would, to consider recommending this PUD to the Board of Commissioners next month with the first two conditions. Thank you.
We do have one person signed up in opposition, so
Okay.
you might reserve a minute or two
Thank you.
for any rebuttal.
Madam Chair, I have to apologize. I can't see the clock from when it's there, so I don't know if we want to come to agreement on how much time if they would agree on having 4 minutes, 53 seconds left. I don't know. I don't know
Will that
how
give you
wanna handle
time,
it.
or do you need to add another minute?
It should. I mean, if we can add a minute, just in case we've got some questions, that'd be
Okay.
fine. Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Steve, for presenting. Good evening. I'm Ryan Poythers from Maxwell Reddick and Associates. Steve covered most of the basis. Just want to kind of reiterate some of the infrastructure, some of the anticipated design qualities that we're going to bring to the table for this one. Again, 239 total units, 138 townhomes, and 101 single-family homes. That is the maximum density right now that we expect. We don't see it growing from here. In fact, as Steve said, most of this rides on whether we can get water and sewer from the city. The other subdivision that Steve spoke about was the Jackson Tract, the Adelaide subdivision that's coming south of this. The city is bringing water and sewer to that. Plans are already underway, and I believe we've already started working on a memorandum of understanding for that. So if that takes place, it's a lot closer than it is now. So like I said, the plan is to bring it down to our site and use that. If we do not get water and sewer, the changes to this would be the townhomes go away, the single-family lots revert back to basically the R25 standard as part of this PUD. So we are requesting that all at one time as part of the PUD. If we don't get it, that's our fallback instead of having to rezone again. So But with that said, really the only other two main infrastructure pieces I wanted to talk about was access that Steve covered. We do have two entrances to meet the Bullitt County Fire Safety Code with the density that we have. Only one of those driveways, the main access on the south side, warrants the northbound left turn lane. And we will have those roadway improvements as part of the plan. Last but not least, for stormwater, there's currently 33 acres of wetlands out there that we do not intend to impact. They will stay that way. Just north of us is is Mill Creek. It's our eventual discharge point. And we will meet Bullitt County standards and ordinance for stormwater detention, so. Yep, and then if you guys have any questions,
We'll call you back up.
actually, I will add one more thing, I apologize. So, the conditions, reading through those, I do agree with Steve, we're meeting the condition for the traffic improvements on Burkhalter. We will also meet the PUD plan shows an amenity space, which I believe you guys asked for, the pocket park and amenity area, so we do have that. And then, like Steve said, the only one that we had in question was the IES standards for the lighting. So we'd like to spend a little bit more time researching those standards. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have one other person signed up, Ms. Pam Davis. In opposition.
Hello. Good evening, Board. Really thought I might not have to speak tonight, but I am here to speak. And I actually did not see any of this until about 2:30 this afternoon. And I was like, oh my gosh. And what drew my actual really attention to it was just everything that if we get the Statesboro utilities in there, if we probably get annexed into the city of Statesboro, if this is 2040 plan, okay? This is 15 years from now. We need to look at today. We need to look at our fire EMS. This is a bad, y'all, it goes from the creek up a hill. People are gonna get killed there. You can look on that property and see a cross where somebody has already got killed. Not from people pulling out here, but just that road is a bad road. It's an arterial road. It is not a main road. It is already R80. That is sufficient development for this area. I also have a question about the development people and also the staff. When I looked at the review plan, just thumbing through on my computer, I said, something didn't look right on the page. Something didn't look right. There's something omitted on that. The picture of what the developmental pattern for this was completely omitted. It's blank. Why? Because it's not like that. Okay? Proximity to the municipal water, to the city water. We don't know when that's going to be there. We're here today. We're talking about today. This could be 10 years, 2035, we could be back here for this. And then there may be more development there. I don't know where the retention pond's going to go. They can't disturb the wetlands and put the water into there. It's my understanding. People will have accidents. Fire, EMS. Where the stations are nowhere in this area. One person was saved on this road because a city person was going home. Bobby Ivy, I believe, was going home and saw somebody that was fixing to burn up in a car. I do believe that this is going to be an accident-prone area because of this development, the number of houses that are being proposed because of the PUD. I am respectfully asking that y'all at this time deny changing it to the PUD one and let it stay R80. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. All right, who would like to come back up, Steve or
Yes,
Ryan?
I'll take it if
Okay.
I may, Madam Chairman. With all due respect, of course, to Ms. Davis, first of all, we're not seeking annexation. They can run water and sewer without it being annexed. And as to the accidents, no one can anticipate or plan or prepare for car accidents. Obviously, those things happen every day all over the county. But we have had a professional traffic study. We've paid the money for that. And engineers, they've been there examining the traffic patterns, and they had all the information. And they did provide the one calming measure that will perhaps help with that traffic, which we're planning on implementing. Order of time. Yes, we are talking about it taking some time, but there are steps you have to go through. The first one is the zoning step. Then we look into working with the memorandum of understanding with the city, just like Adelaide is doing now. They had to go first through the zoning. Then they're doing the understanding with the city. And it's just, one's got to come before the other, and that's why we're here. Far as the ponds, obviously that will be determined by hydrology study, by also professional engineers who understand all the rules about wetlands and water discharge, and certainly that will be implemented as well. The other statement, I'm really not sure I understood what was omitted or was blank, so I really don't have a comeback for that. But certainly we're going to comply with all of the rules. You'd seen earlier about a 25-foot buffer. This one calls for a 50-foot buffer all the way around the property. So I think that should protect both the residents and the adjoining properties. Yes, sir.
I had a couple of questions. The first one being, and this is partly going to be for the staff to kind of address this, but Burkhalter Road is, and I know y'all did a traffic study that pertains to this particular development.
Yeah.
We're setting a precedent in this area. If you put this here, Burkhalter Road is, it's a narrow right of way, isn't it? It's not as wide as a lot of the other paved roads in the county. Isn't that right, Brad?
I don't have that exact figure, but I think it's either 50 or 60 feet in that area.
Well, I mean, the reason why I asked that is because I use this road a pretty good bit, and it is not.
In the pavement, and you might be referring to the pavement, it is a little tight in some areas.
The reason why I was asking about the right of way and everything is just, at some point, if there is growth in the future, this road will absolutely have to be widened without a doubt. And I was just making sure that that the setbacks and your buffer and whatever has to be there. I know you have a buffer that's bigger right now than what you have to have, but if there needs to be room, if this were to be approved, there needs to be room for that road to be widened. Not related to this development, but related to what stuff comes later.
That might be a Ryan and Brad question, but certainly we would allow space for that if that's something that's possible or even probable.
The other thing that I was going to ask is, what is going to become, I mean, that's probably 40 acres of woods back there, and wetlands and all. I'm just kind of roughly estimating. Who's going to own that?
Ultimately, I guess that would be the homeowner association. I don't think, is this just going to be a single owner, the whole development in the back?
I don't, because of the townhomes, I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, we'll probably end up having to put that into a homeowners association, and that it would be managed by all the property owners.
No, well, that was the reason why I was asking, is that's a lot of, I mean, not that there's no economic concern there. What I think about really with this is, right now, it's just woods. It always will be just woods.
Yes.
But it's going to be woods with how many units? It's just the townhomes. Don't worry about the front. How many units are y'all proposing of townhomes?
Yeah, 138.
100, whatever it is. It's a large number of townhomes stuck up in there. Like, in say in Atlanta or somewhere else where you go where there's places like this where there's been areas of woods that are not useful and they've just stayed that way, but it's grown. There's a bunch of particularly high-density residential apartments, townhomes, whatever, around it. Those woods are not somewhere you want to go because, I mean, step on drug needles. I mean, I'm just thinking about, I'm thinking down the road, but, you know, at some point, that's kind of a weird situation right there. I mean, it really is. This is very unusual for developments that we've seen to have that large amount of woods that's just going to be just there, you know, behind a very relatively high-density development. It's just kind of,
Right.
it's just kind of different.
Well, we could either try to address that in eventual covenants that would be managed and maintained by the homeowners association, or we can even look at some other options if we put our engineers on that.
Because it shows a trail going right to those wetlands. Is that just a speculative?
I do know trails are permitted in wetlands, but I don't know if that's a trail headed to the wetlands or not.
Yeah, I see it.
I don't think it was anticipated.
Unless it was part of the, you know, future amenity space, walking trail, something like that, I don't think it's meant to take you down to the edge of it.
No, the amenity areas would be contained kind of within the development area.
I think we really got to look at the school impact. Just going, y'all got an estimated 153 new students.
Yeah, over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, it will put additional students into the system, and obviously that will be examined by school boards and those folks that will look at that.
The building of them goes on property taxes.
Sir?
The building of them is funded by property tax.
Yes, sir, that's right. Anything else?
Is there anything you'd like to offer, Mr. Pope?
Well, as far as the mission on that suburban neighborhood page, it'll be in there before it goes to Board of Commissioners, but it was just a copy over from the comprehensive plan. I don't know why it's not in there. I mean, it wasn't intentional, but
So that'll be rectified before the county commissioners meeting.
yeah, those development patterns, if you go through the comprehensive plan, it shows a typical density of Ag 5 rural open space, and then you go all the way down to an urban area, and so it's showing different street patterns, but I think this board probably is experienced in knowing what moderate to urbanized density would be, so just for that suburban neighborhood, I think, but certainly I can address that to you
All
all
right, can we address
if you want.
condition item number 3 with the street lights?
That's a condition that we've been kind of placing in these subdivisions. There's a standard with IES, Illuminating Engineering Society, that gives us guidance on what a multifamily type setting should be versus a single family, and even down to the rural type subdivision. That's something we're looking into as staff is, you know, even the Kelvin units of a bulb, 4,000 versus 3,000, not to get into all that, but there's just a lot of technical aspects to lighting that even I was, you know.
Well, I'm sure a
unaware of.
competent electrical engineer could follow the standards.
But yeah, that's just to say there's standards that they would have to go by. Currently, there's not anything in our streetlight standards that says what you have to do. Now, for a commercial space, it's an ordinance that says go to IES standards, but currently for subdivisions, there's not. So that's where we've been working with these developers in the streetlight standard, or the approvals like tonight, making sure the candle light numbers and all that match up. So it's just kind of assurance for us.
Is that something that can be handled at at sketch plan phase, that, working with the staff? I don't know. That's, again, more of a technical thing.
Well, I think as James said, if it's not specific to, specifically stated in the ordinance, then it would be up to P and Z and the county commission to include it as a condition.
Okay.
All right, so it's recommended that we, Ms. Davis?
I have one more question. They made a comment at one time that this could possibly be expanded to be more. How many more are they looking at?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is the maximum that it could be if all things are approved.
All right, thank you for answering that. Are there any questions from this board?
Could end up being less, but no more.
I didn't know the procedures.
Your name, ma'am, your name?
My name is Jenlyn Cox, and I'm a neighbor. So I wanted to come here to hear, and this is my first time seeing this, I'm quite shocked, but I didn't know you had to sign up to give your opinion. So I do have opinion.
Well, would you come forward so we can hear you, so a matter of record?
Okay.
And I need you to repeat your name for the record as well.
Okay, it's Jenlyn Cox, JINLINGCOX. And I live on that corner lot down on the bottom. So I'm quite amazed by this. But I just want to say one thing, and that is the speed limit in front of my house is 55. And I don't go 55 because I'm going towards 80, and then it becomes 45. People don't, at 6 in the morning, I work at Lowe's, people don't follow that. They don't follow that. They're driving like they're going, I don't know where they're going, but there's deer and everything, and you always have to be careful not to hit them, but the speed limit will need to be addressed. So that's what I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, the public portion of the meeting is now concluded. It's up to this board to make a recommendation.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Got a motion to deny. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Brandon. All those in favor of recommendation denial? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? That's 5. Is that unanimous? All right, that's unanimous. All right, we will recommend denial to the county commissioners on October 3rd. All right. Therefore, now we're hearing the second part of that. Blue Water Bullock LLC has submitted an application to rezone approximately 9.51 acres from R80 to PUD 1 for the purpose of developing a mixed residential development, including single-family detached units and single-family attached townhome units. The property is located on Burkhalter Road, and Mr. Rushing will be acting as agent again. Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Only thing I just wanted to add, going back to the conversation, the applicant stated that there would be a fallback density of R25 for the plan, but with the PUD, the first portion of a PUD is called a master plan, which lays out the overall development. They have to come back and do what would be considered a conceptual site plan, sketch plan, or in this term, a final plan. But there's no mechanism for a fallback density. So you're essentially granting an approval on their densities that are proposed. If it was going to change, they'd have to come back and essentially get a rezoning to modify that plan. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, sir.
But, yeah, so that's all.
All right. Anything else to add, Mr. Rushing?
I don't think I need to reiterate everything. It's the same project, of course. If there's some things that we need to try to address, that this board has some concerns, if you'll let the staff maybe know, and we'll get with the staff and see if we can't address those concerns that obviously you guys have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions since this is part of the first project? Then we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Chandler. All those in favor of denial? Unanimous. All right, thank you, sirs. All right. D.R. Horton Incorporated has submitted an application requesting a variance of 250 gallons per minute from 5 GPM as required by our Appendix B subdivision regulations Schedule 7.710. The property is located at the intersection of Amanda Road and Youngblood Road. Mr. Lindsey Martin will be serving as agent, and this variance, again, will have to be heard on October 3rd for final determination. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property, as you'll see, well, this is the approximate location. It's just to the east of Statesboro, near Highway 80. Youngblood Road accesses US Highway 80. The R15 rezoning occurred earlier in the year. Board of Commissioners did grant that rezoning, which then allowed the applicant to go, I believe, from 50 lots to 57. You can see by the aerial, there is, the road infrastructure is already in place, and I believe, as stated by the applicant, some or all of the water system was put in place, but that may be something to consider. However, staff recommends a denial on the variance request, primarily because there's no, the initial developer fell out of the time requirements by the ordinance, so it was affected by that, by the developer. But that's really about all I'll mention. Okay, so here's the aerial that shows the, the roads in place. Y'all did grant a variance or two for the access, the emergency access road, which remained as designed. And then again, that's the development as it is now. Sketch plan was approved a month or so ago, I believe, so fairly recently. But then, when we got into the design process of it is when this kind of triggered the variance and the ask by the applicant,
So do I understand right in that there was an elapse of time, so the new ordinance comes into effect automatically?
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Which requires the 500. Okay, so this is a variance to ask to revert back to what was originally 250.
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, Mr. Martin, and I gotta apologize to y'all. In 46 years and over 100,000 lots that I've had my hands or work with, I've never been in such a mess in my life. This has just been back and forth, and it's been crazy. So I own the water system there, and it's completely installed with all the paved roads and everything. The water system around it, this was in 2018 that I put it in. The water system around it's under 250. We put that in, engineered, approved by the state of Georgia for 250. It sat around because they had some issues with the dirt. And for a long time, they did some things they shouldn't have done with the dirt. Nothing to do with me. So it sat and sat. It didn't get the paperwork re-signed to James or Patrick or the county or the attorneys or whatever, unbeknownst to me. So they got, I think they got 6 more lots. I'm not sure, 6 or 7 more lots. And we had the water system in place already. This triggered it, and it would have been the same and okay if they would have filled out their paperwork and did their paperwork like they were supposed to. But they didn't, unbeknownst to me again. So I'm asking the county and the commission to take a little lenience on this because it's way up there and a lot of paved roads, a lot of curb and gutter, a lot of drainage, and a lot of power has got to be done for 7 lots. And again, I apologize for this, and it was beyond my control on this. And I'll answer any
So the
questions.
existing water system could not be retrofitted to increase to 500 without being a tremendous
Tore
expense?
completely out, the whole
Roads,
thing,
Everything, okay. Roads, everything have to be torn out?
everything.
And I'd like to ask as, because I don't know anything about municipal water systems, but I know about pushing water through a pipe because I run pivots. And what exactly is the specific, is your pipe diameter too small?
Correct.
What have you got, 4-inch pipe out there?
A 4-inch and some 6-inch, and that will be 8 and 10-inch that go out there. It'll also have to be redesigned with wells and tanks and piping and crossings and everything. The whole thing will be a wash.
Because I could see if it was just a well, you could just add another well. That wouldn't really be that big of a deal if it.
I agree. I'm well aware of the 500 and I'm okay with that, anything, but for 6 or 7 lots to tear this whole subdivision apart, I'm asking for a little lenience, that's all. And D.R. Horton owns the land, I own the water and the sewer.
When we were here in the rezone, we had several complaints about water pressure from people who came against the rezone. So have you done anything to eliminate their problems?
I've had the EPD out there, and the law states from 20 pounds and up, and I addressed every one of those complaints over there, and there is no water complaints. They can't say anything without, I brought the EPD to those sites, to those buildings right there, and they said that I'm within the law. And it's 45 to 60 pounds, to 65 pounds, excuse me. And the law for the city, when I work for the city and the other cities, is 20 pounds. And we run 45 to 65. I mean, and I do understand, as y'all do understand, a lot of people say some stuff. Some people are correct on some things too. I agree. And if there's a problem, we'll address it one by one. But they did call the state out there, and the state came out there. And they went to, I don't know if I'm not gonna say they went to every single one of them, but I went with the state people, which was 3 of them, and we went to several houses, and they could not find a problem. And they went back without me 2 times.
James, what was your reason for recommending a no?
Well, I think from the technical aspect of it, obviously the fire department would prefer to have higher fire flows, and the point of being impacted or affected by the developer, which I understand Mr. Martin was not the developer, but it was not a natural feature of the land or anything like that. So I don't know where consistently staff could have recommended approval, but I think that's where the board of appointed and elected officials can weigh that decision more so than staff could.
So when does it drop down to, sorry.
Go ahead.
When does it drop down to 250? Like, is it the 7, is it 50 homes that's 250, or is it something different? Because he was saying with the 7 lots, it went to 500. Is that the case, or is it this just a outdated ordinance?
Well, the ordinance would have called for, if they missed the final plat approval administratively, then it would have fallen back to a preliminary plat approval, which they would have had to approve or submit a design to the current standard in preliminary plat. They wouldn't have had to come back for sketch plan, because again, they had a development plan on file essentially. But the 6 or 7 lots stem from the need for sewer and to pump it off site. So then that triggered a rezone. And so the rezoning kind of erased that record. It's a new development plan on record. So that's where we took the approach that it's a new development. It just happened to have everything in place.
And
so,
sorry.
Madam Chair, could I ask Mr. Pope something? Since I wasn't intimately involved in the development review, do you know if the fire department was aware that some water infrastructure had already been put in place to the extent that Mr. Martin has described.
Yes, I believe everyone in that meeting was aware.
Okay, and then, Mr. Martin, I think then that it's logical to conclude that D.R. Horton was aware of the water infrastructure that was in place?
They were aware of the 250 gallons per minute. They weren't aware that the paperwork that, am I correct by saying this, was not caught up or reissued by the old owners out of Wayne County? Is that correct?
I have not spoken with D.R. Horton, so I can't speak to that. Yeah.
I mean, I think personally, I understand your plight. You know, I just get the feeling D.R. Horton's either throwing you under the bus or to the wolves, because it's a national home building company, and they have a team of land entitlement managers who should be doing this kind of due diligence. And I mean, I'm just explaining this for your benefit in the future, but, you know, wherever there's a regulation, there's some level of necessary hardship and inconvenience shared by all the community. But the standard for the variance has to be, is there an undue or unnecessary hardship that's been created? And if you apply that standard correctly, the hardship needs to be more than an inconvenience or preference for a more lenient standard. Cost of compliance may be a factor, but it's not determinative. So it's not enough for an applicant to say that development will cost more in order to comply. The applicant has to show the substantial and undue nature of the additional cost as compared to others subject to the same restriction. So until and unless, and the staff is looking at other options and trying to work with the fire department to work out a good compromise that's good for everybody. But fire safety is critical. But I think what's happened, Mr. Martin, is I'll go as far as saying on the record, Horton's thrown you under the bus because they should have known that, you know, you had water infrastructure in place, and they should be the ones here showing the substantial nature of why it's needed. Giving us data, giving us, well, maybe you could give them some sort of, you know, design sketch or something of how the water system's laid out. In other words, it's not your fault. But I think, but you are the owner. But D.R. Horton has already been given an accommodation because of the sewer situation. They're going to get a lot more density, and that higher density at a R15 compared to a common R25, I think, raises a standard of fire safety that we have to consider. And you shouldn't pay a dime if there are any improvements necessary. It should be on D.R. Horton for the retrofit. You understand what I'm saying?
I agree with that, but I do want to say for the record too, another 150 homes right against this is at the 250 gallons.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a pod of 250 gallons and 250 gallons and 250 gallons and 250 gallons, and then one corner piece, 500. It's gonna confuse everybody in the whole world there on fire departments and everything else too.
That could be considered true, but I think practically what I'm saying, it shouldn't be up to you to explain how to meet the standard, regardless of whether they're your pipes in the ground or not.
They are.
You know, so, and in that fashion, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus either. But I think D.R. Horton's kind of being lame by not being here and either being at your side or explaining it.
I offered to come because I own the water system.
Sure.
I didn't even know that D.R. Horton was buying it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that the guy was selling it. I didn't know anything. All I knew is back in 2018, I designed a water system for this piece of property through the EPD.
Yeah.
And I did, and I did, for the people over there, they made some mistakes, unbeknownst to me, on the dirt. So it's been sitting there and the water's been on the whole time.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I understand it's a national company and everything, but it still falls back on me because I'm the one that has got to pay the fiddler here.
Well, I would respectfully submit and disagree because if anything, if I was in your situation, and I'm speaking for myself and not you or anybody else,
I understand.
it would be, I would be wanting D.R. Horton, if a new standard has to be followed, I would be going after D.R. Horton to recoup your investment in the infrastructure. Now, there happens to be a private attorney here, and maybe you want to consult with them after the meeting. But,
And I said at the beginning of the meeting, I've been through a lot of water systems, as you know. And from 7 counties all the way around here, all the way to Florida and all the way back here. And I've never been in a situation like this.
I understand.
And it's I think it's a mess up from all ends, including myself, but I didn't know.
Well, I mean, I will completely leave the recommendation up to the appropriate bodies.
I understand.
But I'm just stating my professional opinion. I think you're being thrown to the wolves on this deal.
I can't disagree with you because I don't know.
Yeah.
And
You don't know what you don't know.
I don't know what I don't know, but what I do know is it's my job to get water to that subdivision, which I've already did, and they've already paved it, and they've already put everything in there, and it's gonna be a bloody mess.
Understood.
And that you were talking about a lot of capital, a lot of capital.
Well, that should have been considered in their due diligence. I yield the floor to the chairwoman.
And I also say, whatever this board decides recommendation, maybe that you can come back to the county commissioners with some detailed
Understand.
financial information.
And maybe have agent from D.R. Horton at your side.
And the only reason I was kind of told that I'm not supposed to talk money in front of the commissioners and everybody and the planning and zoning. Am I wrong about saying that?
Well, this is a different situation, I think, because I think unless the ordinance is amended in the future to have a different standard to get the fire flow right, I would just hate to see P&Z and the county commission going down a slippery slope and approving variances that don't have a legitimate undue or unnecessary hardship. Now, I think this could qualify except for my compassion for you, where I think D.R. Horton's giving you the weenie, but that's between you and D.R. Horton.
Well,
I think Mr. Chairman may have a question as well.
I'll yield on that one.
Tough act to follow.
Thank you.
I understand your plight. We put when we changed the subdivision ordinance, we changed it for a reason.
And I understand that.
And we've got a lot of other subdivisions that have been approved that haven't been built out yet. So they're gonna come back and say, well, y'all gave an exception here, how about giving me an exception?
A lot of those subdivisions that you got to approve, I am putting the water in there. I am agreed to the 5. But right now, today, I'm 900 lots behind on 500 gallons a minute. What I'm saying is, this system was built for 250 gallons, and it was. And the 7 lots triggered it. And I understand what Mr. Couch is saying. I'm not disagreeing with him at all. But I'm also, I want people to understand too, again, that there is going to be all around it, before you even get to this subdivision, touching this subdivision, is 250 gallons.
And they were built under the specifications at that time.
Correct. It was built, it was put in.
So
but
that's not an excuse.
Technically, we could say, well, Lindsay, you can leave your 50 lots on the 250 gallons, the 7 lots that came along there, we need 500 gallons. I mean,
I don't think that's true, correct? It doesn't matter if it was 50 lots, we'd still be here getting this variance, correct?
And I'm not trying to get around anything. I promise you that. I'm not trying to get around anything. All I'm saying is, we're talking more than they paid for the property to do this.
I think if you had some detailed information on what this, like Mr. Couch said, what the financial burden was, I think.
You're looking at the financial burden.
Well, I understand that, but I think if you had some more detailed information, we'd be more, and no one's voted, so I don't know what the vote will be, but it would be much easier to side with you if there was more than just you saying a lot, which I think is what Mr. Couch was saying.
Let me ask you this. Do you happen to know when D.R. Horton purchased the property or when it was closed approximately?
I don't know that, but I do know the contract was written up on a Monday and it was closed on a Wednesday.
Okay, but has it been within the last, since our moratorium's been concluded?
Yes.
Okay, well, somebody at D.R. Horton didn't do their homework.
I agree with you 100%.
We just voted on that one entrance 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was a different owner 2 months ago.
Right, and what I'm saying is that this isn't about you.
I know
And
that.
if there was an exception, although at the risk of, losing any loyalty by the fire chief, but if there was anything close to a legitimate exception, this would probably be it. But I think it's D.R. Horton who needs to do the due diligence, maybe you working with them to, okay, there may be a considerable financial hardship. I get it. Nobody wants to rip up streets and everything like that.
Sure don't.
But, they should be here. And I know you were trying to do them a courtesy, but,
I don't care about D.R. Horton. I care about me running my water over there to get my customers. I don't care if it's D.R. Horton or George Smith from Reedsville or anybody. I don't really care about that. I care about my obligation of providing water to them.
Sure.
And I did that. Through the EPD, and I did that through the county, and the county approved it.
well,
Mr. Martin, I'm sorry.
yeah, I don't think I really need to say anything more. And you're welcome to make the decision as you like, but,
Yes.
I do have concerns for Mr. Martin's interests, and I think, D.R. Horton's made him the sacrificial lamb in this application.
Well, he's got 3 weeks between now and the county commissioners meeting to rectify some of that information.
I was going to just say something because I feel like there's a little bit of, I don't want anybody to think we're being inconsistent by asking you to give us some financial information when in the past the issue with that, the reason why I think folks want to see it is because we've had, it's almost every single time actually, something to do with a big development comes in here with a variance. It is always only about money, but it's usually a little bit relative to the cost of the project. Like you've got a $3 million subdivision and they're fussing about having to put in, 20,000, well, it's not even that. I mean, a little bit of right of way on a road that's going to cost them actually nothing. And they don't want to do it because they might give up one lot or something like that, which is like 0.1% of the revenue off the project. And so we don't want to go down that path. We don't want to, because what we're doing in doing this, we would be granting this variance to D.R. Horton, not necessarily to you, because they're the owner of the property, so they're the ones that are actually going to have the variance. And I don't want to, like Mr. Tom and a lot of others have pointed out, we don't want to set that precedent with someone like D.R. Horton without if we're going to set a precedent, we want it to be a high bar, basically.
And you asked me for financials? To redo it, it's $410,000.36, plus the $284,000 plus my labor that I got in it before, that I have to rip out and throw away.
That's just your pipe, though.
That's just a pipe,
That's just your stuff.
just a pipe.
That doesn't count. See, that's what I'm talking about. We want to see the roads. We want to see like all of their stuff. I mean, if it's $1 million, that's a little bit different than a $30,000 lot. You see what I'm saying?
And I get that, but I want this commission to know one thing too. And Mr. Couch will agree with me on this, I'm hoping. We can only go so far with people when we're putting in water and sewer and ripping up roads and doing things that makes these lots go sky high and people can't afford them. I just want you to know that. Because the $30,000 lot and the $20,000 lot, they're gone. But the more we add on and the more we do, it costs $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a lot.
So now are you saying that D.R. Horton's going to pay you then, if the lot is going to be more expensive?
I don't think they're going to pay me. I mean,
Well, you contradict yourself a little bit.
I understand
when you
what
talk
I
about
said that, but I'm just saying in general. I'm saying in general right there. No one's told me they're going to pay me. I'm up here asking for me. I don't care if it's D.R. Horton or George Smith or anybody.
My suggestion is this. I mean, this has to go before the Board of Commissioners anyway, right?
Right, I think we've probably talked this thing out.
And
I'm fine with it.
my suggestion is that your recommendation should be to refer this to the Board of Commissioners with, provided that D.R. Horton can meet the standard of providing adequate information to show an undue and unnecessary hardship, if you wanted to put that in the form of a motion, and as Mr. Martin is consents to that.
Sure.
And before they move, you know, I mean, I'm serious.
I agree.
They need to bring some game, and you can consult with them and so forth, but,
And if they don't, that's their fault.
yeah, exactly.
I
I don't want to
I
see,
can live with that.
I don't want to see you out there with dry pipes either, because you made the investment.
They dry, but they just ain't moving.
I know, but you're recouping nothing on it, right?
That's true.
Right.
And I was speaking in general on not only this subdivision, I was speaking on all subdivisions.
Oh, yeah, and we're diligently looking at that, because we said after the zoning moratorium, we know that down the road, some tweaks are gonna have to be made, because we rewrote 2 codes in 8 months, which was a Herculean effort, and we didn't hire any outside consultants to do it. And in my opinion, 95 to 98% of it is pretty good. And we knew we had to have a little bit of history with development applications to see what needed to be fixed. And I think we're getting there, and that will only require small technical amendments. But the good news is you're not coming up here negotiating 45 zoning conditions anymore, right? Right.
I'm not, and to Mr. Brennan, I'm not in no way mad or fighting back with you or anything, arguing back with you. I understand you got a job doing, and I respect Mr. Tom. I respect what he's done for this county. I respect anybody that's doing anything for the county. So don't think that I'm mad at anybody at this. I'm just telling you the facts as I see it, as I know. That's it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Okay. Thank y'all.
If you would like to tell us how to word that motion,
Okay.
Charles, maybe you want to say something?
Go ahead.
I was gonna make a motion, but.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we decline the application and ask that the D.R. Horton show justification of why this variance should be treated as a hardship.
Now, I think if you do that, then the process starts all over again for a variance, James? Well, no, it's got to go to the Board of Commissioners. They're making a recommendation, right?
That's right.
Okay, yeah. That's right. All right, yeah. You carry on. I'm sorry, I was just
I didn't hear what you
trying to
said.
help.
I didn't hear what Mr. Chandler just said.
It's got to go before the Board of Commissioners, so we're voting my motion is to deny the variance, to recommend denial of it, and that D.R. Horton provide the commissioners by their meeting the reason and the justification of why this would impose a hardship on them.
Okay. If they don't, then I can't do anything about that.
All right, we got a motion. We've got a second from Mr. Lane. All those in favor of denial? That is unanimous. We will recommend
Thank you.
denial to the county commissioners.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And since we've already voted on that, turn the water off.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else, any other business that we need to take care of, I will entertain a motion of dismissal. I'll make a motion. All right, motion, second, oh yeah, second, all those in favor? Unanimously, we are.
Okay.
Choose who.
That's right.
Choose anybody